Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 5G actually is a new technology. It is not an upgradation of 4G, and that is something that we have to keep in mind. Another thing we have to keep in mind is that 5G is the first M2M and M2 human technology. So this will be a big change from what we've been seeing earlier. It brings in low latency and high capacity, and therefore it enables new technologies like IoT, AR, VR, AI, blockchain, robotics, drones, 3D printing, and many more. 5G is coming in at the same time as Industry 4.0 is ushering in, and that makes it all the more important because it will enable Industry 4.0 to as could never have been imagined earlier. In 5G, there are two parameters which are inversely proportional. One is reach and the second is capacity. If we want capacity, we have to compromise reach. And in case we want reach, then we have to compromise on capacity. And therefore, there will be multiple use cases which will emerge. For example, in highly industrialized, highly densified areas, we will require more of capacity and maybe less of reach. But in rural areas which are widespread and there is less of industry, we will require more of reach and less of capacity, which means large cells. Whereas in cities and towns which are industrialized and there is huge densities, we may require small cells. So that there are two different things. And hence, it is not like planning a 4G network. 4G network is very simple to plan. The network people sat down, planned it, rolled it out, and thereafter the applications came. In 5G, it is not going to happen like that. It is going to be a collaborative planning where the finance team, the network team, the technology team, all those people are going to sit together and see the viability of business, and only then roll out 5G networks. So this is a big departure. We all know that there are two versions of 5G which are in the offering. One is the standalone version, and second is the non-standalone version. In a country like India, I do not see standalone version coming in right in the beginning. I see non-standalone version coming, which will ride over 4G networks, and only in areas where there is huge amount of industrialization and dense population, we may say spatterings of standalone 5G. The whole thing will be integrated with each other. And another thing which has come in the last few months is the catalysm which has been brought about by COVID. It is now common knowledge that telecom is no longer a vertical. It has become a foundational and a enabling force multiplier sector. On this network, on this foundation, will grow the other industries, and they will have a force multiplier effect. The amount of production, etc., that will be brought about because of telecom is mind-boggling. And some of the features which will help us bring this about is network slicing, edge computing, fog, virtualization versus cloud, platforms at the edge, and many more things. As we go along now with so many variables, what we will see is there will be a number of permutations and combinations which will come to the fore. We will see telcos shaking hands with OTT and CSP in their offerings to the subscriber. We will see subscribers hugely benefiting out of this. We will see enterprises benefiting out of this 5G rollout. But the problems are also there. Now, if telcos have to roll out a 5G network, they have to have a use case where they can be a ROI. At this current time, really speaking, world over, there is no use case of that magnitude. Yes, pilots are there, but there is no commercial use case. But there are going to be, all predictions indicate that there are going to be a huge number of use cases. But in the interim, the telcos are expected to roll out a huge amount of capex for these networks. They are already bleeding, at least in India they are bleeding. And with that type of pockets, it will be difficult for the telcos to roll out unless there is hand holding done by the government. And government sees this as a foundational sector and as an essential service, which means that it is equally government's responsibility to see that these networks come about, and it cannot be left only to the telcos. Government may not actively participate, but they can facilitate, certainly. As far as the OEMs are concerned, they will look at cost benefit because of the scales, and hence they would like to manufacture devices which are interoperable, which conform to global standards, so that the market reach is not limited to any one geography, but is across the world, which means lower price to the consumer and better interoperability. So that is what OEMs, I feel, are going to look at. As far as government is concerned, government will be looking at this from the socialistic point of view, as to how they can bring a betterment to the lives of the populace. At the same time, they will also be looking at generating revenues for their own coffers. Now, here I will request the government to look at the primary revenue coming from telcos a little more favorably and reduce it. Because the secondary revenue which will come from the sectors which grow on telecom will be much more, and will more than compensate from any drop in primary revenue that the government may face. As far as the user is concerned, he is only interested in quality and affordability. And therefore, this is something that the entire ecosystem has to gear up to. And the user must get quality, must get the services at an affordable rate. And keeping that in view, I feel that the rollouts are going to be mixed across the country. There will be areas where there will be large cells, there will be areas where there will be small cells, high capacity cells. There will be areas where there may be one or two standalone network rollouts, but more or less it will be non-standalone rollouts which I'm seeing coming. There will be challenges. Some of the challenges like cost and use cases I've already mentioned. There will be challenges of even skilled manpower, and we should now start looking at that aspect. Much of our jobs as we know them today will get overrun by technology which will get enabled by 5G, and hence newer jobs which will be based more towards data will come up, and therefore entrepreneurs will also have to look at integrated and customized solutions. Entrepreneurship will come to the fore, and we will see innovation technology and processes coming up. We will definitely see Make in India coming up, because we will find people shifting from other geographies where the cost of production is higher to India. And since it is a standard-based rollout, standard-based production, and hence the stuff that is produced in India will be at a lower cost, but it will have a market potential of the entire world, which will benefit everyone. There is a need for the inclined people to look at skilling and higher education in this area, especially in the data-centric area, into data-centric verticals. So that is something that we will see emerging. There are the areas in the industry which we will see a focus of 5G on is, to my mind, EdTech, FinTech, agriculture, governance, medical, defense. Surprisingly, nobody's talking about defense, but it's a big vertical which will have a lot of applicability. We will see manufacturing adopting 5G. We will see data centers coming up. It has to. because the huge amount of data that is getting spewed out from the connectivity and from the capacities has to be managed, and therefore data centers will be required. And in its wake, we require cybersecurity, we require analytics, and many other things which go with data and high capacity and high speeds. So, gentlemen, I think that there is going to be a huge amount of challenging times that we are going to see in the coming future. And it is our minds which have to find answers to these challenges and adopt them to the ecosystem in which and to the geography to which we belong. I am sure that 5G will alter our lives as never before, and things are going to change and change for the better. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this session with old friends from EU and India to deliberate over the next phase of Indo-EU cooperation in standardization. I would like to use this opportunity to share with you the TSDSI roadmap encompassing topics related to 5G deployment, 5G use cases, and beyond 5G, which are currently being discussed by the TSDSI community. It is only appropriate that we also recap the collaboration that has been going on since 2016 and seed some ideas for potential areas of cooperation in the next phase. To begin with, let me provide a quick snapshot of what is happening in TSDSI today. The core standardization work happens in the two study groups, and the key study and work items are listed here for your reference. Let me highlight a few of them. In the networking domain, we are working on NAVIC, India's version of GPS developed by ISRO and accepted by 3GPP Release 16. We are also working on the specification of dual SIM phones, which are very popular in India. Another topic is broadcast offload in collaboration with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. In the services and solutions domain, we are working on the specifications for cloud interoperability and portability, which has been mandated by TRAI. We're working on support for Indian languages across various use cases, and also some new topics like contact tracing and proximity detection, which are important in the pandemic era. All of this work is done by the general body of TSDSI, which has 65 members comprising of equipment manufacturers, software and semiconductor developers, research organizations, and government agencies. The governance is provided by the Governing Council, which has 21 elected members and 8 nominees from the government. TSDSI, as you all know, is a partner of 3GPP and 1M2M partnership projects, and also a member at ITUR and ITUT. For the last 4 years, TSDSI has been actively engaged in the development of the IMT 2020 specifications at ITUR WP5D. Starting in October 2016, TSDSI contributed the low mobility large cell proposal. The proposal specifies the requirements for rural connectivity for developing countries like India. TSDSI then developed the TSDSI RIT technology specification using the 3GPP 5G RIT as a baseline and submitted it to ITU. The TSDSI RIT meets an extension of the LMLC requirements, which are more appropriate for the Indian conditions. On November 26th, ITU declared that the TSDSI RIT successfully meets the evaluation criteria of IMT 2020. This is an important milestone in the history of telecom standards development in India, and we want to thank the Indo-EU collaboration for supporting us in this journey. At 3GPP, we have the NAVIC proposal accepted in Release 16. For Release 17, there are 6 proposals that have been submitted. These are related to coverage and capacity enhancements. These would enable the integration of TSDSI RIT, also known as 5GI, into the 3GPP 5G specifications. At 1M2M, more than 372 contributions from TSDSI IANs have been accepted in Release 2, 3, and 4. The TSDSI transposition of Release 2 has been adopted as a national standard by the Ministry of Communications. This makes India the first country to formally embrace 1M2M. As a preparation for widespread deployment of 1M2M, TSDSI is working with ETSI and other partners to enable all TSDSI members to actively participate at 1M2M. We would again like to thank the Indo-EU collaboration for extensive support in enabling this. The Roadmap Committee at TSDSI works to create a pipeline of new proposals for the study groups. Members and non-members bring new ideas for discussion at the roadmap workshops. The topics discussed in the most recent roadmap workshops are listed here. These can be categorized as 5G enhancement, 5G use cases and applications, and 5G evolution topics. The next few slides will provide more details on these. Under 5G enablement, we have topics which will enable rapid adoption and deployment in India. Spectrum study proposals for C-band are addressing the satellite-terrestrial coexistence with special attention to the interference from high density of mobile phones on the satellite uplink. In the E-band, several questions including licensed versus unlicensed usage are proposed to be studied. Rural broadband architecture is focused on technology solutions for 100% connectivity in rural India, given that only 1/3 of the villages, that is the Gram Panchayats, will have fiber connectivity. Last mile options like Wi-Fi and broadcast offload are also being explored. And for virtual RAN and edge computing, RAN clouds, cloud interoperability, and open source options such as ORAN are being studied. Discussions around 5G use cases from various vertical industries have also started. For V2X or intelligent transport, the proposals are related to accident avoidance, traffic management, adoption of drones, and the challenges for autonomous vehicles given the heterogeneous traffic in India. Captive networks or private networks for verticals such as railways, defense, police, and banks also need to be re-architected to leverage the network slicing feature of 5G. Additional questions regarding usage of spectrum and sharing of core networks also need to be deliberated from the Indian context. And finally, there is a lot of excitement around the technologies that will enable the next generation of networks. Of course, there are the 3GPP Release 17 proposals related to capacity and coverage enhancements, multimedia and broadcast and multicast services from an India perspective, and India-specific preferences for the options related to SA deployment and RU-DU split being discussed at 3GPP. There are also technology proposals for integrated access and backhaul, as well as full duplex communications based on research done in India. Under the umbrella of 6G or beyond 5G, it is all about applying new technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning, innovative sensors, terahertz communication, and quantum computing across the networking stack, from the RAN to the application and the service layers. Now, let us spend a few moments recapping the experiences from the Indo-EU Partnership Project for ICT-related standardization, anchored by TSDSI and ETSI. This project was initiated in November 2016. There are many successes to be proud of. The most significant is the popularization of 1M2M in India. The TSDSI transposed 1M2M specification has been adopted as a national standard. This will form the basis of standards-based deployment in our smart cities and other M2M applications across the country. This project is also supporting centers of excellence at IIIT Hyderabad, IIT Delhi, and UIT Punjab University at Chandigarh in the areas of IoT M2M applications as well as visible light communications. We thank the Indo-EU stakeholders for their vote of confidence by providing additional funding to drive this phase 2 of this project for 2 more years. There are many more MOUs in place with several EU bodies like ETSI, 5GIA, WWRF, GCF. New MOUs are being discussed with ORAN, 5GACIA, and 5GAA. This provides a strong foundation for further strengthening the Indo-EU collaborations. Here are some thoughts for the next phase of collaborations. First and foremost, we should develop deeper collaborations towards harmonizing our efforts at standardization at ITU, 3GPP and 1M2M. Some low-hanging fruit are championing a fourth pillar on rural and remote connectivity at IMT, integrating 5G-I into 3GPP release 1718, and working towards extensive deployment of 1M2M by increasing the participation of Indian industry. The next phase of collaboration needs to go to the next level of capacity building by nurturing a sandbox for standardization in the form of interoperability testbeds for cloud computing and 1M2M, facilitating 5G trials and use case labs targeting different vertical industries. Knowledge sharing on the new challenges related to security and trust associated with the 5G era also has to be nurtured further. There needs to be a special focus to nurture collaborations between startup and academia across India and EU. The success story of 1M2M evangelization now has to be duplicated for 3GPP. The Centers of Excellence support model should be evolved to promote standards-driven research. And the barriers for participation in standards development need to be lowered by providing travel support and enabling remote participation at hybrid meetings. The new focus areas for the next 2 years would be application layer standards to engage India's software community, AI/ML technologies, open source and open data initiatives, with 5G evolution and 6G providing the overarching umbrella for all of these activities. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to the next phase of Indo-EU collaboration in ICT standards development.